find adventure at the click of a button, or from the turn of a page, or the casting of a die. Join your hosts, Conniff and Shiloh, on an unforgettable journey. Questing the multiverse.
Shiloh, I'm tired this week. And it's for a multitude of reasons, and I know you can relate to this. One of which is, I don't know if it's like over exposure to games. It's just so much. But in general, this week was just nutso. Do you relate? Do you agree?
Oh, yeah, completely. Different reasons, but yeah, this has been a taxing week. I guess is the my thoughts on it. So.
It's the short and sweet. I felt like we hadn't recorded for like months. And so today, as I was looking at the notes, I was like, we really just did an episode last week. Of course, we always do. But I was like, I don't know. I feel like so much stuff has happened. And it's not just game related. Like, we had my youngest son's birthday today. There's so much stuff prepping for a family member's wedding. Just a ton of stuff going on. And I was even off this week from work. But between trying to finish Baldur's Gate 3, playing Starfield officially, and then just some other odd job games here and there, like Guild Wars 2, Sea of Stars. It's just been overwhelming. I watched a video today from The Completionist, and he's this guy named Gerard on YouTube. And his shtick, or his channel, is dedicated to like 100%ing games. And then he gives it a rating on whether you should play it, ignore it, complete it, or skip it, or whatever. I don't remember the exact ones. And so this man is like legit like completing games, and his video was about Starfield, and it was basically like, should I even try to complete this game? And like, he does stuff like he completed Jedi Survivor, he completed he's done all sorts of stuff, right? Like Skyrim, like whatever. So he's not, a stranger to these huge games. But I feel like some of the Starfield completion that would be necessary is like you shouldn't subject yourself to that much gameplay of a game.
No.
Like, to be honest, would you try to complete, well, I know you're not like a completionist anyway, but like when you finish Baldur's Gate 3, you're probably not going to touch it for a while, correct?
Yeah, not for a while, no.
I would agree.
And who knows, I may never go back. It might be one of those games I'm just going to let that sit. I don't know if I'll go back and do a different playthrough. It might be one of those things we talked about multiplayer. Maybe I'll go back and would complete it again on a multiplayer session that someone might throw together. But
yes,
for right now, yeah, once I complete it, I'm just going to let it sit, and it'll be there in my Steam library, and at some point on a rainy day, or
whenever
it'll be one of those games.
Whenever we get one of those years that like is actually dead and empty with new exciting releases, which is not this year at all. So
yeah. Exactly.
Well, we have 3 things of news or whatever commentary to touch on. And then we've got our video game face-off segment, and then we've got Starfield. So that's kind of the itinerary for the episode, listener. And we wanted to start with this news topic because it's kind of a fun discussion. And I've got 2 questions, really, for you, Shiloh, in this. And so the Game Awards, everybody knows, hosted by Jeff Keighley, basically the de facto Game Award ceremony for video games these days. There are others like the Golden Joystick and a few that have lost themselves in their prominence or whatever. But the Game Awards is like, if you win this is what people are remembering as of right now. And it's only been around since 2014, I think. So here is each of the winners from each year of the Game Awards. And after I say them, I want you to tell me if you've played it or not. So 2014, Dragon Age Inquisition.
Yes, all the way through.
Okay, I have not. 2015, The Witcher 3.
Yes.
Yes to me as well. 2016, Overwatch.
Played it for maybe, I don't know, 5 hours.
Wait, really?
At the most.
That's more than I expected. Who did you
Yeah.
play as mostly?
I don't even remember. Probably someone that I thought looked funny.
Well, they all kind of do, but
Yeah, they all kind of look funny.
I have played it as well. That's actually what really the first game I got into after getting married. So 2017, Breath of the Wild. That's Legend of Zelda. I have also not played that.
I do not own a Nintendo and probably will never get one, so
He has no reason to.
I have no reason to get one.
2018, God of War.
No, but I do own it on PlayStation, but unfortunately I don't own a PlayStation anymore.
What?
So.
Oh, you sold it? That's right. I have played this, and it is actually a pretty good game. It's a lot more on rails than it's kind of like one of the first two Dark Souls in that capacity. That it's there's not a ton of freedom of exploration. Now maybe I just didn't get very far, but it was pretty like linear. Like you go here and do this.
Okay.
So I don't know. Maybe I'm just crazy. That's definitely a case, but I did play it and I enjoyed it. 2019, Sekiro.
Never played it. Want to, but never have.
I am the same boat, especially because it's kind of that From Software game that people, obviously it won Game of the Year, big deal, but for whatever reason, it's people talk about Dark Souls, maybe Bloodborne, and Elden Ring. Like Sekiro kind of just gets left in the dust, which is interesting. 2020 was The Last of Us Part 2.
Never played it.
Never played it either. 2021, It Takes Two.
Nope. If they make it takes one, I'll probably play.
I have played it, and I played it with my wife, and we did enjoy it. Yeah, we didn't beat it, but it was a really good couch co-op game, for sure. And then 2022, Elden Ring.
Yes, and still need to finish it.
Yep. I mean, I put in like 80 hours, and I think my character level is like 130 something. So pretty substantial, but so then the question is, and this is probably no surprise to our listeners, but what is your pick so far for Game of the Year in 2023?
Destiny 2 Lightfall. Just kidding.
I think I just heard swine laughing.
Said no one.
Swine laughing from a truck somewhere in
Crashing. Don't crash, swine, please don't do that. Yeah, it's definitely Baldur's Gate 3. Without it, now that I've played enough Starfield to know that there's no way in hell that if anything but Baldur's Gate 3 wins this, I'll be pissed. I mean,
it's been that type of week.
I'm not gonna go into keyboard warrior phase or angry gamer phase or tweet about it or anything like that, but I'll just be like, really guys, the same it'll be that disappointed
I have that somewhere on the soundboard, but I'm not gonna go find it.
Okay, yeah, don't find it. But yeah, it will be that I will be thoroughly disappointed, but I there's a chance that Nintendo's the Breath of the Wild game, or no, Zelda.
Yes, it's Tears of the Kingdom. That's the one where I'm like, listen.
Because I've never played it and I don't know, but I'm sure it's good. I have no idea.
That's exactly where I'm at. I think Baldur's Gate 3 is the game of the year. I've played enough Starfield to definitively, in my opinion, say that. Of course, the new Spider-Man game comes out on Sony PlayStation, whatever, sometime in the next few months, I think. But other than that, the only one that I'd be like, okay, like I disagree, but I didn't play it. I hadn't played its predecessor, so I'm kind of like, my hands are tied. Would be if Tears of the Kingdom wins. Now, with that said, I think that Baldur's Gate 3 came to such a roaring success so quickly, and on Metacritic and everything, that like whether or not it wins Game of the Year, it's gonna be the golden standard for what people consider good RPGs to be. And what we're gonna try to do today in our Starfield discussion is try to look at Starfield within its own echo chamber rather than constantly be fighting off the beast of comparing it to the other game that we're basically playing at the same time and trying to finish up, because that's going to be, it's inevitable. But at the same time, there are things that I think are great with Starfield that I have to remember, like, okay, Baldur's Gate 3 it wasn't even a diamond in the rough. It was just a straight, 10-carat diamond you found on a hike in Arkansas or something that you're like, oh, I'm just instantly, $20,000 or whatever dollars richer or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. It's always going to be the case. Like, it's a anomaly of a game. We recognize that. We've talked about it, but I think it's the game of the year in my opinion. So,
yep.
I guess we'll see. And when they do the show, the Game Awards, we're going to do an episode talking all about it afterwards, because in my opinion, that, and then like what used to be E3 but is now kind of the Microsoft Bethesda showcase, and then Sony has their showcase around there, Nintendo does their Nintendo Direct. Those are like probably the biggest game events of the year, each of those, like the Game Awards and then that early June. And so when we get around to it, we'll end up doing an episode on that stuff too, because it's just fun to sit there and analyze and discuss it. But oh man, let's move on. We got some stuff to talk about. Yeah. So RuneScape Hero Pass trauma. Are you ready, Shiloh, for the worst monetization and microtransactions you've ever seen? Look no further than RuneScape. So RuneScape has been a game that we've talked about maybe a little bit on this show, but of course back in GG Party Chat era when I started playing it again. My good friend and I, Metalis, we've been diving back in. They released Necromancy earlier in July, and we started leveling that. Well, that was a big win for Jagex, who's the developers of the game, for this 23, 22-year-old game. Well, as if, like you take one step forward, you take 10 steps backwards, they release this Hero Pass, which is basically a Fortnite Battle Pass mixed with the Wizard's Vault from Guild Wars 2 that provided buffs to better your gameplay. And that's just one of the things it did. Oops. But you could completely buy your way through this pass. So effectively making the high-end bossing, and I'm probably over-exaggerating because, of course, everyone on Reddit and game players do that. But you're effectively making it pay to win, which is a big no-no. Everyone knows that. So they roll this thing out, and a ton of changes. They did away with the old daily reward system, which, like we talked about last episode, like Guild Wars 2 did that, but they actually rolled out something better. Whereas RuneScape rolled out a new daily reward daily challenge and made it worse. And so, of course, people riot. So much so that they actually have gone back on their plans and have eliminated a lot of parts of this Hero Pass. In fact, their community update about it starts with, "We messed up." And so, when that's the case, it's great. So I'm not going to read this whole thing, but they basically say, "The launch of Hero Pass alienated and frustrated many in the community. You've told us, amongst other things, that it was too pay to win and you'd lost important aspects of daily challenges. We made a significant misjudgment and we are sorry." And I think that's important because Jagex, for all their failings, like the game has really ramped up its microtransactions in the past 10 years. They still own up to the players. So I respect them for that. I currently, I just don't care. And Metalis is kind of in the same boat. Like he grinded to 99 necromancy, so he finally got his max cape back, which if you don't know what that is, listener, if you get 99 at least in every level, every skill, you get the max cape and can gain access to the max guild, which has all these amenities and stuff. It's basically like a soft completion of the game because there's far more hard challenges. And so Metalis did all that, and he's kind of taking a break to play other stuff. Of course, Guild Wars 2 has Secrets of the Obscure, but both him and I are just kind of like, like just rolling our eyes. Like, we like this game, but we're both adults with lives and families. Like, and it makes stuff more pay to win. It just takes the wind out of your sails to play it. So
yeah,
that's kind of where we're at. But it is kind of shocking that they reversed it like they did. I haven't really seen that happen in games that I can think of where companies have put out something that just bombed and then they basically are like, all right, we're gonna totally do an audible and redo that. So
yeah, well, the EA loot box thing.
Oh yes,
Battlefront 2.
Forgot about that.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
That was a huge I don't know if EA really stepped to the plate and announced it and apologized or anything. They just kind of took it all down. So.
They just silently
in EA fashion
acquiesced. Yeah. Yes. Okay, so this last piece of news, why don't you jump on this? Because the train keeps rolling in Bethesda camp.
Yeah. All right, so I guess now that Starfield is out, Todd Howard has announced that Elder Scrolls 6 has entered early development, which
yes.
at least I assumed that was already
the case.
The case, but I guess it's official now. So, I'll open this link here.
He does say that he probably would have announced it more casually, and I read somewhere else that he also said he probably wouldn't have announced it when they did.
Yeah,
they did it a little too early.
Yeah, they kind of. I do remember that, and I guess this is in the article that saying that because it was in that trailer from 2018, which is why I would assume
5 years ago
that the game has been in early development, but evidently not. So, but at least it is now, I suppose. So, it's probably 5 years away still. So 2027.
Yeah,
my guess, maybe sooner. Who knows? But
well, they announced. I guess we don't know at what. I'm sure it's out there, maybe, but at what stage of development Starfield was at by the time 2018 rolled around, because Starfield got announced the same trailer or same E3 teaser that this Elder Scrolls 6 got announced.
True.
And
maybe 2025, 2020, I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If Starfield was already in production when Fallout 4 came out, it had been in production, development, for 3 to 4 years. Mm-hmm. So if that's when early development started was 3 years before 2018, then we've still got I wouldn't expect to see Elder Scrolls 6 until close to 2030, which is mind-boggling, right? That's 7 years from now. 7 years ago, I wasn't even married. So yeah, that's wild to just think. But I agree. They announced it a little too early. But they sit on those IPs for so long that if you don't dangle that carrot, even if that carrot is a mile away, if you don't even have it and people can't see that it's there, they're going to start to speculate. And so I think maybe it was a good move to announce it, but maybe they should have just straight up teased it rather than straight up said Elder Scrolls 6 or what is it? Yeah, the Elder Scrolls 6 over probably, I don't know, Bretonville, Daggerfall area. So
yeah, I hope that they haven't outkicked the coverage on this one to where the using a different engine would benefit them. But who's to say what engines are going to exist at that point? Who's to say that? I really do think that they kind of outkick the coverage because the development has taken so long, or will take so long, that there's what types of engines are they going to work with, and what new engines will come out by the time their game comes out, and how dated it will look. So I don't know. I hope for a good game, but
yeah,
we'll see.
And that's the thing too, is like, you see some of these games, so like Ashes, for example, like they recently made the switch to Unreal Engine 5. Like that's the reality of these games that are in development. Now, Intrepid is really like transparent about their development, whereas Bethesda's like all closed doors all the time. But it's like, like we've just seen some huge major upgrades in technology with I guess not the introduction, but really the spotlight turning towards AI as far as like dialogue and art and all sorts of other assets are created and stuff. Like, not to mention like the advancement of ray tracing within just the past few years. We've got the new Unreal Engine with its basically phototelemetry, photorealism assets and everything. Like, we're talking like 6 years from now, 5 years from now even, the game is going to have to be moved to a new engine, or at least be built in a way that they can move stuff to a new engine, so that way when it releases, it'll look up to date. But now, with that said, I think Starfield looks as good as Cyberpunk as far as like textures and stuff goes, especially if you play Cyberpunk on like a medium machine, or in our case, and we did, a console, right? Like, they look good. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but like what's that town, New Atlantis, it looks like a decent, like you could have dropped this in Night City and maybe stripped out all the cyberpunk elements, but like they fit in like the look of it. I guess like the actual mechanical asset creation of it could be comparable. So they did decent work with Starfield, but it's so early to tell. But that's the nature of video game development, I guess. Yeah. We're just commentators, not developers.
Yeah, I just have no idea how long it really takes. So,
all right,
more power to them. I just, I'll stand by my outkicking the coverage thing. It just
yes.
If you release something, you just don't know. Like I don't know. Hopefully they can make it to where they can just click and drag everything over to a new engine, Unreal 6 or whatever. That's
at that point, right? Like,
yeah, who knows?
Unreal 6 for Skyrim, Elder Scrolls 6, it could work.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, 6 and 6 and 36. That's when we'll see it. 2036.
The number of the beast.
All right, let's dive into this little video game face-off, huh?
Ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've been waiting for. Video Game Face-Off!
This one has me a bit worried. Shiloh.
Why?
Because, like, I have a feeling I know what you're going to pick. I guess you could surprise me like you did with Half-Life 2 and Monster Hunter World. And maybe that shouldn't have been too surprising to me. But we've got one of the better games that has come out in the past 5 to 10 years versus a game that's very wacky, but also is rather legendary as far as like PlayStation consoles go. So Control versus Kingdom Hearts. Shiloh, why don't you walk the listener through what Control is, and then I'll walk the listener through what Kingdom Hearts is, and then we'll do our gut feeling pick, and I have a feeling we'll wind up on the video game rating system spreadsheet, which is fine because I've got it already pulled up just in case, and we'll go from there. So what is Control?
All right. So Control is a game set, I don't know, maybe slightly in the future, maybe, but it's a FBI. You play as an FBI agent, Jesse. And,
Well, FBC technically, but
well, yeah, it's basically the FBI.
it's the FBI.
Yeah, Federal Bureau of Control.
Yes.
So yeah, Federal Bureau of Investigation, basically. And the majority of the game is you investigating the series of bizarre, wacko stuff that's going down in this FBI building and trying to make sense of it all.
Yes.
And you kind of, throughout playing the game, you accumulate these very kind of psychic combat abilities that allow you to kind of use telekinesis. You're able to throw objects across the room at these things. Gosh, I don't even remember some of the names of the enemies and
well, they're the hiss is the actual
hiss, yeah.
like I don't know, species,
The big bad,
the big bad. But yeah, it's you get these paranatural effects or abilities. I mean,
yeah, but the game has this great. I don't even. It almost feels like a episode of either Twin Peaks meets. Have you ever watched the show Fringe?
no, but you've mentioned this before, I think.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Fringe. I mean, maybe it's because Fringe is a kind of an FBI centric, strange sci-fi show that has lots of elements of time travel and alien stuff and all sorts of mystical, magical stuff that's going on. But anyway, I really liked this game. I never finished it, but it was creepy and the combat was really, really good in this game. It was just a lot of fun and interesting to kind of go around and using these strange, and your guns had these weird, they almost reacted to things as well. Like they were moving parts to a degree as well. So I don't know. This was one of my surprise hits of what would be 2019, I think. That's when this game came out.
Yes, it was 2019 for everything except for the Switch, and then I got a PS5, Xbox Series X release.
And it's got a few expansions or small little things that I haven't played yet. This might be another rainy day game. I've got so many of those. I just start stockpiling all
Your
these
backlog
games.
is getting worse.
Yeah. So, but that's essentially Control. So it's never got like Game of the Year or anything like that, but it very, very, very good game.
No, however, I do recall it being on a lot of top 10 lists from 2019.
Oh yeah.
It did win a Golden Joystick Award. It won Best Art Direction in the Game Awards of 2019. And it was nominated for Game of the Year, but of course we know that went to The Last of Us Part 2, based on our previous... Sekiro, sorry.
Sekiro.
The Last of Us Part 2 was 2020. But yeah, it won... It did win some things, but not like the big Game of the Year. Okay, so Kingdom Hearts is If Control is dark, brooding, mysterious, and sort of supernatural, Kingdom Hearts is Disney meets Final Fantasy characters and all the fun and joy that entails. Now, here's where the rub is. Kingdom Hearts is legendary because it has spawned this the original game, which is the one we're talking about here, spawned a massive franchise. And it has become quite legendary in how confusing the narrative is. In true, like, Japanese RPG fashion, you know. It's just this timelines are, like, all over the place like a plate of spaghetti. And the original was confusing in its own right. But you play as Sora, who is on this island with his pal Kairi and Riku. And that's where the normalcy ends. And suddenly they're taken over by the Heartless. And just so you know, listener, I'm doing all this from memory. I don't have it pulled up this time because I wanted to see if I could give a synopsis of this game from memory. It's been literally like almost 2 decades probably since I played it. But anyway, they're on this island. It gets attacked by the Heartless or something. And then Riku and Kairi get taken, and Sora gets bonked on the head or something, and eventually winds up realizing he has these powers, and he meets Donald and Goofy. Yes, those Donald and Goofy. Yeah. And I think eventually Mickey, but I think in the first game he was teased at the very end. Or near the end or something. So anyway, they team up because they need to stop the Heartless and stop the evil queen. And the guys, what was the dude's name? It started with an Ansem, I think, was the big bad. I know Shiloh's like, I got no idea. Disney, and that's where I was out. No, but so it's a really good game because it's like an action JRPG. So most JRPGs are really good on the story, but they're all turn-based combat, like classic, like, you know, you've got your party on one side and the bad guys on the other, and you take turns and fight and everything. And those games are fun. In fact, I'm playing one right now called Sea of Stars on the Xbox with the kiddos. But this was like different because while it had all the makings of a JRPG in terms of story, you know, abilities and items and cool stuff like that, and, you know, like you upgrade your armor, it was completely live action combat. So think like, it's actually kind of like what looks like Atlas Fallen might be, where you know, zoom around and you're hitting things, and like basically a fast paced Monster Hunter world. Mm-hmm. And so like the weapon is called the Keyblade, and there's all these different other Keyblades you can get that have different effects. Like one that you get from the Little Mermaid's realm is, you know, like great with water attacks or something to that effect. There was like one thing I distinctly remember is there was like a collection log for collecting all 101 Dalmatians that were scattered across this multiverse. I do remember fighting Sephiroth, who's from Final Fantasy VII, and he was extremely difficult, but you fight him in Hercules Coliseum or something. It's just like all this stuff is pretty wacky. I think there was, I don't know if this was Kingdom Hearts 1 or 2, but there was the Nightmare Before Christmas town. There was the Peter Pan clock tower. There's, you fight Jafar from Aladdin, and it's just, it's pretty legendary. It's very confusing. If I were to try to pick up Kingdom Hearts 3 today and play it, which did come out like in 2019, I think, or 2018 or something, I could probably do it, but I would have to completely give up on understanding the story. So, so that's Kingdom Hearts. Shiloh, what is your gut pick?
Just because I've only played Control, I'm gonna have to go with Control. I don't think there's a universe where I would probably sit down and play Kingdom Hearts, so it sounds entertaining, I suppose, but yeah.
So my gut feeling was Kingdom Hearts simply because it was a huge part of my childhood in terms of the game that, like, Newbie, who you know, one of our listeners, but one of my longtime friends, listener, him and I just loved Kingdom Hearts. But Control is such a good, not adult game, but an adult aimed, is the adult target audience game, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think
Mature, there you go.
mature, yeah. So again, my gut reaction was Kingdom Hearts, but I'm picking, like, that would mean, you know, if we were going to go through this whole thing, I would be giving it a max points on nostalgia, because Kingdom Hearts is hugely nostalgic for me. But when you actually get down to it, and today, what would I be more likely to play? It would be something like Control, because the atmosphere of Control is just so fun and so mysterious and unique. Like the Panopticon, that the prison where all the objects of power are kind of sat in their cages or cells, or it's very high-tech stuff, listener, if you've never played Control. But it was just a mind-blowing experience playing Control. So I'm going to have to go with Control, which means Control moves on, Kingdom Hearts gets knocked out. But if this were Kingdom Hearts 2 we were talking about, it might have better legs to stand on, because that game was way better than the first, in my opinion. But Control is like, it's like almost the perfect sci-fi for me, where it's like real world sci-fi, and it's done in, like you said, like a Twin Peaks meets X-Files or Fringe sort of way. Like, it's I think if you've never, if someone out there has never played either game, I'm gonna automatically say you should play Control, because Kingdom Hearts is like 20 years old. But also because it's simply more familiar to play a game like Control in 2023 than it would be to play a game like Kingdom Hearts. Games have evolved so much since then. So,
Yeah.
all right, we are decided then. I think I just talked myself out of going with Kingdom Hearts, but so Control wins. I actually forgot to put in the notes what the next matchup is, so it's going to be a surprise the next time we do it. It won't be next episode, may not be an episode after that either, but it'll come and it'll be a surprise. And if you're on our Discord, you will get to see what the next matchup is, because I'm going to update the bracket graphic in our Discord channel. So join our Discord if you want to see. And I think, Shiloh, it's time for really the main event. You know, to see the stars.
Ooh, the stars.
Good evening, folks. This is your captain speaking. We've begun our descent into Alpha Centauri's atmosphere and should be arriving at New Atlantis Spaceport in just about 10 minutes. On behalf of Constellation, we hope you enjoy your stay.
Well, Shiloh, you've played more than 5 hours now of this game.
Yeah.
What is any update to your first impressions from last episode? Because I remember you mentioned something specifically where you were like, I'm getting to the point where I could really see myself like really diving in and enjoying this game. Are you there yet? Or is it more
I am, but
life's got you
life has got me by the cojones. So I haven't put a ton of time in this week at all, but I am at that point to where I can see myself. And this is a common thread from what I've seen from a lot of reviewers, where they're like, the game is pretty slow. at the beginning, and it took me about X number of hours to get into it, and I'm like, okay, I can relate to that. Because yeah, it took me over that 5 hour hump, and now I'm in just to the life hump where I just can't. Well, that and I have been getting back into New World a little bit, so I've been poking around in there. But so my limited time at night hasn't been sitting down with the Xbox and playing a whole lot of extra Starfield, but I have doubled the amount of time that I've played. Actually, a little over double. But it is definitely got its hooks into me. It is one of those games that it is so massive that I'm like, okay, I just need to sit down and devote, like Baldur's Gate 3, I need more than just an hour or two. I just need to kind of sit down and fully engross myself in it for at least 3 hours. So, and I just haven't had that much time this week at all. So, yeah, it's an unfortunate situation I find myself in, but
it's
here we are.
Unfortunate reality of being an adult, but
yeah, but there are some things that I'm like, but
yes.
And I haven't gotten into some of this that quite like you have, so you'll probably end up taking the lead on a few of these things, because I have not gotten into building spacecraft or outpost or any of that. I've just been working on the main story, and I've did a little bit of exploring. I ran into a few space pirate battles that were a lot of fun.
Yep.
Probably one that I should have just warped right out of there, but I was like, well, we're doing this, here we go.
I had one of those.
And
that's fair.
So
okay, so I will give my first impressions, but then we've got a few I guess mini topics to cover, and that's going to be like history and lore, character creation, the environments, space battles, combat, the inventory, and then shipbuilding. So we want to hit each of those as far, because again, this episode, more than even the last one, is just first impressions. This is what we think of this game so far with our limited amount of time. And unlike Baldur's Gate 3, this is something I kind of was thinking about. And so listener, who's a little behind the scenes, like with Baldur's Gate 3, you were able to really like give effectively Forgotten Realms history lessons, right? On races, and like we did the thing on the Underdark, a bit of the behind the scenes. But just in general, like you had the experience, but beyond that, there were simply far more materials out there to learn about Faerun. Well, that's not the case with this game. Like, this game's brand new to everyone. The lore, everything. And of course, like, if we were to talk about, as we talked about Elder Scrolls 6, whenever that game comes out, we'll have plenty of Elder Scrolls lore we could dive into, and years of experience between both of us. But this game is brand new. Everything we're experiencing is like brand new. So it's hard to look at this and be like, man, maybe we should talk about like the Constellation. Well, what I know about Constellation is what I've played. And so nothing short of waiting for like Oxhorn or those Bethesda people to make the lore videos about it, like it's all stuff that we're going to find ourselves, and that is part of the excitement, I think. And as far as me, that has been part of my first impression, is like I don't feel like I am treading on a bunch of history. Like you go play Baldur's Gate 3, especially if you're someone who's played D&D for years, like, or decades, like you know the history, you know the significance of certain factions, everything. Well, as a first impression into this, I have no clue. And so when we get to character creation, I'll say a bit about how I did my backstory and what I kind of came up with. But I guess my first immediate thought was that exploration is a ton of fun. Probably the most fun in this game out of any Bethesda game that's ever been created. And ultimately, I think it's it feels like it's the whole point of the game, and as it's space, it's the final frontier for humanity. And in this game, that frontier has been explored, and so you are getting to go explore it. So for me, exploration was the biggest piece where I was like, okay, if I can at least enjoy exploration, then I'm going to enjoy this game. And thankfully that was a yes. With that, it's just like, you can, after the initial section where you finally get your ship and have freedom to go wherever you want, you can literally just open the star map, pick a system, and fly to it. You can then pick a planet or moon in that system and explore it. Some of them are desolate rocks, but others have points of interest on them. And some of those points of interest are a lot, go deeper than meets the eye. Like I had one where it was a little detour. I was landing on this planet because I was doing some side quest for the bank to collect a debt. I was basically, a loan shark and going to hunt down these people. And I get to this planet. We handle things, me and this dude handle things amicably. And then before I go back to my ship, I see an outpost off in the distance. And this is a frozen ice moon or planet or something, by the way. So I see this outpost and I'm like, okay, I'll go check that out. So I'm walking towards it, and then I see that there's spacers outside of it. Well, they're hostile, and so we get into a fight. And so I'm thinking like, okay, this outpost looks like it's just, a few rooms of an outpost. So I go and shoot and, blast my way in and kill all the spacers standing outside. No joke, 50 to 60 minutes later, I finally come out from this outpost because it was this massive underground laboratory of cryogenics and stuff. And there wasn't anything super important there. I did get some cool weapons, I think one of which I still use to this day. And I walked out and I took a picture of it. And I may have put it on Discord, but I walk out and the sun is shining and you've got the God rays and everything. And I crest over this hill and I can see my ship off in the distance. And I'm like, okay, that was a 60-minute detour, but that was pretty fun. I'm not going to lie. And honestly, that's kind of where Bethesda games have really succeeded and shined. Is where you if you go into it without any plans and you just kind of squirrel your way through a place, you'll come out of it with some good stories and stuff. The one
that same real quick, that same outpost, I think I explored, and I think that's what kind of set me okay. I think that was the hook that actually got me.
Were you
too.
also being a loan shark, Shiloh?
Probably, yeah. And I was just let's do something fun other than the main story.
Yes.
So I was I'm just going to pick this little direction and we'll go there. I think it was a side mission or something. Let's just go there. I might have picked one initially and was okay, that's way too over leveled.
So. Yes, I did that one too. Or I did not that one, but I've experienced that too. I wound up in some planet, some system, and I didn't realize this, but when you're at the star map and you actually see the system names, they'll have a level, a suggested level or whatever the level that area is. Me being a level 8 somehow found myself in a level 30 system. And so I jump out of hyperspace or warp drive or whatever, and I see 5 level 30 ships, pirates, all fighting these other ships. And I was like, ruh-roh. And one of them locked on me and I died in 5 seconds. And so I had to immediately warp drive away any system. I was like, I just need to get out of this one.
Yeah. Get me out of here.
So that's fun. There's a sense of danger and stuff in that. But the one downside of my first impression is that typically Bethesda games are really good with their hook, where it happens at the very beginning of the game and it just immediately compels you. Okay, I like the direction of this story. So each of the games have had this, and did you play Oblivion?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think the hook of Oblivion is that you're like escaping from prison or something with the king, and he gets assassinated like right away. Isn't that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the hook for Oblivion. Fallout 3, the whole hook was, one, it was the first person Fallout game. But two, the hook was you start out in this vault, and then when you finally open up the vault door, there it is, post-apocalyptic Washington, D.C. New Vegas, the hook happens literally within like the first 5 minutes, where your character gets shot in the head and there's this whole cutscene about it and everything. And so you survive, and the only thing you know is the name of the person who shot you and what he stole from you, or maybe he was trying to steal from you or something. Skyrim, you literally within the first, well, aside from the memed to hell cart ride where you're riding in the prison transport cart, you watch someone get beheaded and then a dragon attacks and you survive, and the game opens up from there. Fallout 4, I think, had the best one in my opinion, because it starts out in nice 2076 suburbia outside of Boston. And you've got this Vault Tech salesman that comes to your door and is like, you should buy Vault Tech. And then the air raid sirens go off, and you and your significant other and your baby rush your way to the conveniently located vault that was built just next door to your neighborhood. And as you're going down, a nuclear bomb detonation happens. But it doesn't stop there, because you get inside, you walk into your cryogenic chamber, and then you wake up at an undisclosed amount of time after you get put into cryosleep to somebody shooting and kidnapping your baby. Well, they don't shoot your baby. They shoot your significant other and kidnap the baby. And so not only is the post-apocalypse, like the nuclear explosion part was pretty cool, but the whole twist with your baby getting stolen and your significant other getting shot, like, it's a pretty like compelling narrative right then and there. And so that hook has always been in Bethesda games, and it just gets you, and it's like, okay, I want to explore and do whatever. Where is it in Starfield?
Yeah,
the
the only hook I can think of is that, like I mentioned before, the space archaeologist, the space Indiana Jones in me was like, all right, let's do this. So,
it's not as strong though. Like
there's no personal investment story wise, at least other than escaping being a miner on this lowly planet, I guess. But, I see what you're saying, though. If there is no personal investment, hook, line, and sinker to kind of make you feel like, okay, we have to do this and do that, other than, all right, I guess we're joining this secret society of people.
of of relic hunters.
Yeah, of Illuminati Indiana Jones people.
So, again, I think I'm a little further than you. We haven't beat the game by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
Barely begun, probably. But in my opinion, if I was going to take the beginning of Starfield and give it a Bethesda-style hook, this is what I would do. So you start out in the mine elevator with your two pals, going down there chit-chatting, and you've got your laser cutter, whatever. And she's, you follow what's-her-face, and she's talking to all the people, and that big machine clears the way, and then you step through the hole, and she's like, okay, you can go scout ahead and see what you see. What they should have done, because that's all fine, that's just setting up like, okay, somehow your character has found themselves as a miner, right? What they should have done is, after that hole gets dug and you start walking up and radio interference starts happening, you should have gotten to that section with the relic, And they could have done this a few different ways, depending on how dark the narrative needed to be. But you walk up, you touch the relic. You can have the hippie space acid trip, whatever. But then when you wake up, the entire mining complex should be just empty. No people at all. No people, the remains of their equipment and everything, but just completely empty. And so then you have to find your way through this place, and then you get up to the outside, and the miners and the company or whatever that's sitting there is like, what happened? And you don't know. And then you do your character creation, and then Barrett comes and says, you know, like, we need to study this. Like, this entire outfit of miners has just completely vanished after you touch this. And so again, I don't know where that would lead, because of course I don't know where the game's going as it is. Yeah. But like, just something to give a bit of mystery. But just a space acid trip, and then we should go find all these other relics. Like, to me, what it looks like is we're building the Halo ring, and eventually we're going to be the precursors that the Halo franchise talks about. And then 100 or 1,000 years in the future, Master Chief and the Covenant are going to fight on that darn ring that we've spent all this time collecting. So that's my running theory. But again, it's my only downside so far is that, like, I can handle like the sameness on some planets where, okay, well, here's another few room outpost. Here's another, you know, working rig or whatever I saw 3 planets ago. Like that, I can suspend disbelief. But as of right now, I'm more hooked on the exploration and just the freedom of all that than the actual idea of going and collecting relics. With that said, I do agree with you that I like the Indiana Jones relic hunting direction. I just think they could have done the hook a little better.
Yeah, make it more mysterious and make you wonder, like, oh, I wonder why we're doing all this, rather than, well, we're just going to get these relics because they look cool and they float around, and we're not sure what they do, but
yes. Or even better, instead of everyone disappearing, you come to after your space acid trip and everyone is just like dead, torn to shreds. And you're the only one that's alive. And then you get out of your mine shaft and you get thrown in prison, because that's how real Bethesda games should start, is real Elder Scrolls games, at least. No. And then, of course, Constellation comes and bails you out because they have interest in the relic and whatever. That would be interesting too, but...
Yeah, everyone knows you start out RPGs either in prison or on a beach. Those are your options. And
that's a good point. Yeah. Okay, so that's my first impressions, but what do we know, Shiloh, about the history and lore? I put a little note in here if you'd like to read it, but it's basically what the setting is, and I think that's really as far as we know, and the history is left to us to find.
Yeah, probably just enough for the listener to get a summation of what Starfield is all about. So Starfield is set in an area that extends outward from the solar system for approximately 50 light years, called the Settled Systems. Around the year 2310, the 2 largest factions in the game, the United Colonies and the Freestar Collective, engaged in a conflict called the Colony War. The game takes place 20 years after the war, with the major factions enjoying an uneasy peace. The player assumes the role of a customizable character who is a member of Constellation, an organization of space explorers, also known as the Illuminati.
The Illuminati.
Indiana Jones, the Illuminati.
The Constellation is really neat. Like, that's my favorite.
Yeah, it is cool.
Their little lodge looks very cozy. Like, if I had all the money in the world, I would make a library that looked like that front room of that lodge. Why not have a greenhouse attached to it? Because all the money
Yeah,
in the world.
and put some space plants in there too,
Space plant, of course. But
and a robot.
what's interesting is like you're not given this information prior to starting the game. And it would help because I think one of the character creation options was like you could be part of the Free Star Collective or the United Colonies or something to that effect. And so you're not really given any background as to the universe. And I want to say like Fallout 4 had that that little voiceover intro done by Ron Perlman about like war never changes, and that was a terrible Ron Perlman voice, but it was my own and it was decent.
Pretty good.
But you at least kind of understand like, okay, and of course like most people played Fallout so they know. So with Starfield there's really no primer to what the status is of the universe. And I think maybe something like a little bit of a history lesson, like a 2 to 3 minute video at the very start of the game would have helped. But
Yeah.
it's interesting at least. Like it's a nice blend of sci-fi and like real history. Like it feels like, okay, I could see us in maybe not in 300 years because I feel like we're all going to blow ourselves up. But if we don't, I could maybe 300 years from now, this could be the case. So
Yep.
I don't know. I just got some crazy notification sound that popped up that I'll probably have to remove. So listener, you probably won't hear a thing, but no, you might. I don't know. Anything else, Shiloh, on the history and lore that like caught your attention? I know that there's been some run-in I have had with the Valdoon or one of the space cults, I guess. But anything else that strikes your fancy that you've seen?
No, I think maybe next episode we can get into some of these factions.
I think we should.
That we've
Yeah.
run across, because I have touched on a few in my brief playthrough, but I think getting into that in a little more detail would be kind of cool. We'll save that for next
Yeah.
episode.
I stole one of their ships. I do know that.
Oh,
That was exciting.
yeah.
But it's a pretty chunky ship and I wasn't a fan. So now it's sitting in my fleet being unusable because I can't afford to register it. So
Yeah. I'm thinking I'm going to switch up the way I play this game.
Okay.
Just because I don't normally play this way, but I think I'm really going to play Space Pirate because I think I could have a lot of fun doing that. Just being a little grouchy and just going around and just boarding ships and taking over, and yeah, I think that's the direction I want to go from now on.
yeah.
My character's gonna do a slight 180. I mean, she's already kind of a street punky, at least in my mind. That's what I've made her out to be. So
You know what's funny is like after playing Baldur's Gate 3 for so long with all your companion characters or whatever that have a very strong moral compass, it's hilarious to do very questionably moral things in Starfield and Sarah Morgan just be like, that's great. Take what you need and leave the rest. Like she just doesn't care. And in fact, I think she tells us like, it doesn't really matter what your past was, as long as we get those relics. That's all that matters. Yep. She is driven to succeed for those relics. So you said you are going to switch her up, your character, but what did you create? Like, what was your background and the traits that you picked?
So my background was Cyber Runner because I figured thievery and being able to lockpick right out of the gate, or at least having that skill. 'Cause you're not really locked in this game with your backgrounds.
Yeah.
You basically get 3 skills right out of the gate, and depending on your background, which you can acquire these skills down the road, but it just these are the skills that you get with this particular background. So the ones you get for Cyber Runner, I think, were some sort of tech, which
I don't know.
And then lock picking, and then laser guns. I'm like, all right, that's perfect.
That sounds like Shiloh.
That sounds like me. I want laser guns. And so the traits I picked were introvert, because that's kind of me in real life. Neon Street Rat, because that's me in real life. No, I don't know. Just sounded like a fun cyberpunky.
Sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Sounds pretty good. And then Wanted, because I don't know. Sounds pretty good. But with Bethesda's history and our history of playing Fallout 76, we knew about bloodied builds, and it was like, oh, this was.
Oh, that yes.
When I saw that, I was like, a bloodied build. That sounds interesting. So,
which is interesting for the reason that I picked Wanted. So mine was Beast Hunter with alien DNA, introvert, and Wanted. So we had 2 that were the same. But I went with Wanted for the same reason, because I was like, okay, my character was a beast hunter. And I picked that because I was like, I want to do something a little different. Normally I'll pick like something with high charisma because I just like to talk my way out of situations in these games. But I was like, what if my character was like Crocodile Dundee? And but like the space version. And so what I did was I was like, okay, I'm going to pick Beast Hunter. And what I'm going to make a point to do is find exotic beasts and try to slay them. And I'm assuming, and maybe I'm wrong, but that because I think 76 definitely did. You could put trophies up in your camp. So I'm assuming that in Starfield you'll be able to put trophies or something up in your outpost. Maybe not. I don't know. But so I was like, okay, I'm a beast hunter, and this is the whole thing I crafted as I chose these. I was like, I want alien DNA because I want my beast hunter to have like some of that like that Witcher style advantage. But then I also want him to be an introvert. So maybe I really did just build a Witcher, a space Witcher. He doesn't look like Geralt. He's young, and he looks. There's some actor he looks like, and I'll need to get a photo and put it in Discord because I can't place it. But I feel like you'll be like, oh, that looks like so and so or something. But Beast Hunter with alien DNA, introvert, because in all Bethesda games, I've never really cared to go with companions. So I was really annoyed when Sarah Morgan refused to stay on the ship for like the first mission that you do for Constellation. So I was like, I don't want you here.
Yeah.
I need to breathe. I'm breathing worse because you're here. Because I think that was like the downside to introvert or something.
Yeah.
And then with Wanted, I was like, okay, the lower my health is, the more damage I'll do. That is a quintessential like beast hunter type thing, like crocodile wrestler. Like, you know, you've got some battle scars, but now I'm going to overtake you. And but on top of that, the little backstory was this is what I came up with was I was a beast hunter. I underwent an alien DNA transfusion as a lab rat, and then something went wrong and I was supposed to pay for that treatment and I never did. And so now they're sending bounty hunters after me. So.
So your Wolverine meets Han Solo meets...
yeah. Geralt. Yeah. I like it.
All right.
That's yeah. And that's fun. Like, so their character creation is really good in this game. I got to hand it to them. I think it was a lot of fun. Just picking all that stuff. It's definitely the best Bethesda character creation that's been done, in my opinion. So,
yep.
Okay, environments, Shiloh. We're still really exploring, but what are some environments that have just blown your socks off or left you kind of, oh, this is neat, with that sort of thought?
Yeah, I don't know if New Atlantis, like, going into that was like, oh, this is a cool looking city. But I think going into that Hoth planet is what we'll call it. I don't remember what it was. that we mentioned before was a neat environment. I'm like, okay, this is cool, because I was worried that every planet was going to look like rocks and red, and then you go to Red Rock Planet, and then you go to, but having
a gray rock planet, and then
these little space stations and things that are going on was really kind of eye-opening for me. And it only that was a very, very brief thing. And then I went to the I can't even talk. Firefly planet with Sam Coe. I don't know if you've done that.
No, I haven't. There's a Firefly-like planet.
Well, it's like almost like a Western where you go in and
maybe I will have to do that next. I've been putting off the Constellation missions because I'm like, no, I just want to do my own thing, and I need credits because I want a ship build. So
yeah, it's pretty neat. I ran into a kind of a bank robbery situation right out of the gate.
Nice.
And that was the last thing that I did. That ended, I guess, okay. I don't really know, but I got some sort of deputy badge or something. So
nice.
I guess I must have done something good.
Already a deputy.
Saved enough people, I guess, somewhere along the way. So
you're not really fitting the space pirate mentality.
Yeah, I need to switch gears quickly in my character. Like, hey, I don't know if you got the memo, but we're going back. We're turning a different cheek from now on.
Breaking Bad, baby.
Yeah. But yeah, from what I can tell, and going forward, I think it's just going to be a lot of fun to see what different environments we're going to run into down the road. So, looking forward to it.
Yeah. I came across a space resort on a planet somewhere. I have no clue where. I know what it's called. It was called Paradiso, and it was a giant space hotel with a beach and some fancy little penthouse rooms, and there's a top floor open air bar, and there's this whole storyline that goes with this involving another ship that you see when you first jump to the system. And I don't want to spoil it because it's obviously a crafted element, and it's a fun little storyline, but it was very neat to come across this. And I don't even know, actually I know this was the reason I stumbled across this was because earlier when I mentioned I warped to a place and there were like 4 level 30 ships. Well, I got out of Dodge quick, and I didn't have time to be picky on where on my star map I wanted to go. So I just picked somewhere close to get out of immediate danger. And that was when I landed in the system, that's when I got this distress call and then landed on the planet. And so began this adventure. And so again, that type of thing is why Bethesda games are great, because it's a lot of like, if you go into it with the intention of, I'm just going to see where the stars take me, if you will, you'll really enjoy it. But it was a very like tropical style environment. And considering up until that point, I had gone to our moon, the Earth's moon. I had landed in Missouri, which was a desolate wasteland, so nothing has changed. And but I also, that Ice Hoth planet, there was a few others where I was like, okay, I'm landing on, especially, it made sense because I was doing bank loan shark hunts or bounty hunts or whatever. And so, of course, like the targets are going to be on some desolate back world that's got nothing going on because they're trying to, hide and escape. And so it was a nice change of environment. Now, I've only seen, have you been to any of the other big cities in the game?
I'm guessing that this Western, I don't remember the name of the city, but I'm guessing it's one.
Okay.
From what I can tell.
Was it pretty big?
I haven't been to Neon yet, and that's
kind
of where I want to go because that's kind of my character's MO. But
yeah,
but yeah. So I guess no, other than this one that I just started exploring.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. They did a good job. I haven't yet landed on a planet that like was just knocked my socks off, mind blowing with the way it looked. Like I said, that tropical planet was pretty neat. I did hop the fence in New Atlantis near the lodge because most of the times, like when you load into a place, like it's an instanced, it's a interior zone or whatever.
Mhm.
But no, I hopped the little barrier in New Atlantis, and I proceeded to explore outside of the city in the wilderness for like 60 minutes to 90 minutes, just going around. And there are locations outside of the city that you can come across, and flora and fauna and resources and caves. And so I was like, wow, that's kind of I didn't expect that, honestly. And of course the New Atlantis planet is pretty beautiful, so that was Alpha Centauri, I think, is the system. But okay, space battles. What, Mr. Pirate, do you know about space battles? Since apparently you're going to be getting into a lot more of them.
I guess so. Like I mentioned, it was running into a group of other pirates. Well, now that I've a self-proclaimed pirate, I assume that they like to be called other pirates as well. So, but they were in battle with might have been, I think they were free star ships.
Okay.
One of those situations where you stumble across these pirates battling these free star ships, and if you fire on the free star ships, they're obviously they become aggro to you as well, and it's kind of hard to really assess really what's going on, at least at the very beginning of the game. Early on, like I'm just like I don't know, I'm just gonna. So I ran across, I think it was 3 or 4 pirate ships. I was level 6 at the time. These were level 12. And I'm like, I don't know. Well, maybe I should get out of here. But I thought, well, let's at least give it a shot just to see what we
happens.
got here. And I managed to get all of them. And I was like, all right. So for me, personally, I'm not a big space flight simulator guy. I don't really, that's not my MO. But I had a lot of fun doing this. It's very simplistic, but yet it's exhilarating enough to where you feel like you're kind of in control of the ship. You can move your shields and move.
Yes.
You have to move it's basically a game of moving shields and laser power and your artillery, or sorry, ballistic guns and all of that. And then you have to have a certain amount of energy to build your warp drive. And sometimes that can just, other ships can jam other parts of your ship. You have to set your shields up, and it's sort of a little mini game that you can kind of play. And then of course there's the actual fighting and locating these ships and locking on to them. And I guess there's a perk down the road that you can get where you can kind of lock onto a ship, and it's one of the only instances of the game that brings up an almost VATS type system to where you can disable engines and things like that to make it easier to board. I'm like, okay, I want that perk.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet.
I was researching that and I was like, okay, I definitely need that because I want to take over the ships and board them and do that sort of thing. So I think it could be a lot of fun, at least for me, and lead into all of this, like you had just mentioned. I think if you played this game just like, I'm going to stick to the main story, we're going to do this, point A to point B, and we're going to finish this game in 60 hours. And I don't know if you have as much fun or have the same experience as just letting it go and just play the game however you want it to. And sure, there's the main story, but you just kind of sprinkle that in here and there. And I think that's definitely the way I want to play this game. It's going to be a very long con or a long haul for me. So I don't know how many hours I'll end up getting in the game, but I don't really care because I'm just going to play until I decide to retire from pirate life, and then I'll stick to the main story.
Stick to relic
hunt down artifacts. So
so on that specific note, I think you are absolutely 100% correct. The best part about Skyrim wasn't the main story. It was that you could just kind of, on your way to the main story, get sidetracked by a ton of different stuff, and that would lead to other stuff and so on and so forth. And that's what is great about Bethesda games, and they've always been good about that, and Starfield is no different. As far as space combat, space battles go, I have played Star Citizen to some degree of proficiency when it's operable, but I don't do that with a HOTAS, or for you non-flight sim people, like basically a joystick and a thrust. And I played it with a controller, which is what I'm playing Starfield with, by the way. And I know you're playing on Xbox, but I'm on PC using an Xbox controller. And I do think the space combat, at least like the aiming and flying and shooting part, is very simplistic.
Yeah.
That's to be expected, though.
Okay.
But the piece with the relegating the power to different systems, that's what sets it apart. Not from Star Citizen, because of course Star Citizen has that, and ideally in a perfect world in Star Citizen there's another person, another player on your crew doing that for you, while one person's flying, another person's manning guns, so that's the next level. But for Starfield to include that was a big plus, because it gives a little bit of depth to each combat. So you could, if you're fighting multiple targets, take all your power out of like missiles or ballistics, throw them entirely in lasers so you can melt shields, and then pull all of the power out to missiles and ballistics to just annihilate them. And then also balance, like what I like to do is I'll balance, I'll bump shields to max, take everything out of grav if I know I'm going to fight this fight, and put some in engine so I've got some more maneuverability, and then summon the weapons. And so you just balance it out that way. If you wanted to just be a stationary fortress, just pull everything out of engines, put everything in guns and shields, and just go to town. That'd be fun too. And so it is fun. I haven't felt like actually challenged by a fight, and I think that's probably because like if you're fighting ships your level, like unless you just royally screw up, like you'll probably come out all right, unless there's like 10 or something. Now switching gears to ground combat, or like the first person combat, because that's our little next topic, I actually think the gunplay is the best in any Bethesda game. Now, Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas were pretty terrible. Fallout 4 was better. Fallout 76 was okay, but most everybody I know ran some sort of VATS build, and so you just click VATS and then hold the trigger down. So you didn't have to aim ever. So what do you think? Like, do you agree, disagree?
Oh, yeah. It's not quite as polished as, well, let's say Destiny by any stretch of the imagination, but it is pretty good. It's definitely the best out of any Bethesda game. It's probably my favorite combat out of any Bethesda game, save for maybe ESO. That's a different entity all on its own. We'll say single player Bethesda games. It I've like right out of the gate you get, what is it, a pistol or something that bucks terribly, and I'm like, I don't know about this. And then I got my first, it's probably because I didn't have any perks in that sort of gun, but once I got my hands on my first laser, I guess it's comparable to an AR but with lasers. I was like, okay, here we go, we can do this. So and I'm looking forward to seeing what other kind of guns are out there. I've played around with most of the early game guns, and I'm still stuck on my laser rifle.
My laser pistol.
And I picked up a laser pistol too, just for fun, just to see. But yeah, I've enjoyed it. The grenades, I think Swine had mentioned that you still throw them like you're playing softball or something. I don't remember his exact comment, but yeah, it's uh, but they work.
Yes.
And so we'll see. I'm enjoying the combat in the game. It's fun to coming from playing a crap ton of Baldur's Gate 3. It's actually fun to have
That's a big point, yes.
an action based game to play. So it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I've enjoyed it. It's probably my favorite part of the game so far is the actual combat. So
Yeah.
maybe
Which
that's
is saying
the-
something for Bethesda, like,
Yeah, definitely, because that's usually their like, it's kind of a weak spot. Maybe I can talk my way through this. I
Yes.
did a lot of that in Skyrim because I wasn't ever a fan of the well, let's do this, pause,
eat 50
that action.
cheeses.
Well, that and it's like first person fantasy is always hard for me to wrap my head around, and I'm just like,
Oh,
nah,
yeah.
it just feels weird. But yeah. But this game I do play in first person just
Yep.
because I'm used to playing Destiny. So
Same here. Okay. Inventory blues. I think this is
another.
centered around one thing, and that's weight limit. But
Yeah,
what were you going to
weight
say?
limit.
Another.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people saying this is another crime, but like you had mentioned, inventory systems and Bethesda games are generally. I don't know why I don't know if they can't get it right or if they just make so much stuff and you just feel like you need all this stuff, so you collect all this stuff. You find these videos of people just hoarding all these things, like, well, I don't know what to do with all this stuff, so they just dump junk all on their ship. And I've seen a video of like Sarah Connor, is that her name?
Yeah,
The
Sarah
companion?
Morgan.
Sarah Morgan, whatever.
This
Sarah
isn't-
Connor's Terminator.
Terminator.
But
All that could be.
Sarah, whatever her name is in your ship, and she's just surrounded by like piles of ore and sandwiches and all sorts of stuff, and it's just
Yep.
kind of comical, but it is what it is. Yeah. Early on, I picked up from like, well, I need to get weightlifting or something. because
It
my
doesn't
character-
help much, honestly.
no, and it really doesn't. But you had mentioned that they at least made ammo weightless, which
Yes.
is thank God, because if you had to carry around, I don't know. I mean, ammo is hard to come by for me anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
in
Certain
general,
ammo, too.
so-
I have like a sniper rifle. Like it's called the Old World Hunting Rifle or something, and it looks like an old Russian, like our world sniper rifle or hunting rifle. And it takes 936 or I don't know what the round is. And I've just legit never seen it since I've looted. Since I looted the gun and some ammo, like I've never seen that ammo. And so I know you can craft that stuff, I believe, and so I'll have to craft some of that ammo. But
yeah.
at least they made it weightless because 76 is brutal with that, especially if you're carrying like some of the
50
laser
cal
rounds
and-
or 50 cal. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in the last time I played Fallout 76, I had like 11,045 rounds or whatever the what's the gun that everybody uses? The Fixer, whatever the bloodied build that I'm running uses. I have like 11,000 of those rounds, and I have to use like the bandolier card in order to reduce ammo weight by 75%. But like, you don't want to only carry around like a few thousand rounds and have to keep adding some to your so it's just a mess. But so Bethesda finally learned. Now if only they could learn how much their gamers are hoarders and just give us like double the weight capacity right away. It's just
Or it's storage containers and chips or something, so you just didn't throw all
Yes.
your crap on the floor.
And eventually I think mods will probably, I'm sure
yeah.
on PC there's already a mod to fix that, and that's fine. But it's like, just like nobody wants that low of a weight value. Like if you gave us, because I think it's like 140 is the starting if you don't have the card. If you just gave us 300 out of the gate, like people are still going to complain. because we have a problem with hoarding in Bethesda games, but like 300 is reasonable. Like 300 is enough to go like do 2 different planet adventures and then be reaching limit. Not go to a planet, go to one outpost and already be close to the limit after fighting like a group of spacers. So okay. Well,
it's troublesome.
We're down to, I did add one little thing here that I wanted to mention before we get to shipbuilding, because I have seen bugs in this game and they tried to kill me on various planets because they were the alien species there. Honestly, this game has like hardly any bugs that I've encountered. Like the video game bug, not like the insect. And for Bethesda, for a release game, that's unheard of, frankly. And so I've seen like one person, his character like zap into a location because I probably popped into the, my whatever, like he was loading in or something. But that's like legit the only bug that I can think of that I've seen. Like everything else has just been fine and worked, and no T-posing NPCs or anything like that. So
yeah.
Have you seen anything weird, like out of the ordinary?
I don't think I've seen anything yet. No.
Yeah, see?
No cyberpunky kind of bugs.
Yeah, even Cyberpunk was more buggy on release than this game.
Yeah. Especially for some people.
Yes.
But I haven't really come across anything major. So it's good on them. I guess we were all expecting them.
The worst, of course.
Yeah, you just expect Bethesda bugs. They're a known species, but we didn't get any. So, or at least very few. I have seen people that have posted some that look pretty funny.
Yeah.
Some of them I'm like, well, I don't know if that's really a bug or if that was actually intended. One of them had an enemy that got shot and then flew straight up into a ceiling. It looked like a metal ceiling, but he just basically went through the metal ceiling, and then his little legs were just dangling there. It was pretty amusing. I'm like, well, maybe that wasn't a bug. Maybe that's just good,
it's
fun
just
stuff. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, no bugs. Well, there's bugs, but it's a pretty smooth experience, which, like I said, is a new one for Bethesda. Ship building. So you've done none of this.
None of this yet, no.
And while we're in it, Outpost, have you done that at all?
No.
Yeah, me neither. But now shipbuilding, I have done. And at first, I just simply did not understand it. And I was like, okay, I bought these upgrades. Where are they? Why do I not see them anywhere? Okay. But then I realized that when you're in the ship menu and you go talk to the guy on the landing bay or the landing pad or whatever, and you can modify and edit your ship. And you can click each individual piece and you can delete it, or you can rotate its, not rotate it, but like if an engine is on one side, you could flip it. But the most important thing here is if you just click A while you're not touching a piece, and this is on controller, you can put new ship parts out there. And that was the piece that I missed. And from there, like, there's quite a few options. There's plenty of options that are simply for cosmetic purposes, but like there's a lot of different options for like your habitat module, like the things that actually matter, like weapons or like your shield generator or your grav drive, or there's a few different options, for cockpit even. So it's really neat, honestly. And of course, like I've already seen some wild creations. Like someone created a mallard duck out of ship parts, and that was on some, I saw that on a tweet. And then there was one where someone just made like a giant frame of a cube a ship, and then another person made like this L-shaped ship that apparently is really hard for NPCs to hit in space combat. And so there's all these different applications, and of course, like the habitat modules that you choose change the interior of your ship. So like if you have the captain's quarters, it instead of like say the one you start out with on your ship, like you don't have access to the nav bench, you don't have access to the whatever workstations there. I don't remember the research station. Yeah, it's just you have a bed and some fancy decorations and stuff, and it looks nice, but like that would change the way your ship looks. So what I think would be really fun is, of course, like you need a lot of credits for this, but like you'd build multiple ships. You'd have your main one that's like kind of your Starfarer ship, but then you might also have one that you've built specifically for combat. So maybe it's literally just a cockpit, one of the small modules, and some really fast engines, and then a ton of weaponry. I think that'd be pretty neat. So that's pretty cool. But then you can also steal ships. Like I mentioned, I stole a ship. You do have to register it, so you have to pay a registration fee before you can sell it or modify it. But yeah, if you see a ship, you can steal it. And all you have to do is fly it off planet or whatever, and it goes into your fleet. And from there, you can choose it whenever you want. So if you see something really cool as a space pirate, Shiloh, you know what you can do. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yes. Well, before we move on to the book report, do you have anything else to add for this sort of first look at Starfield?
No. Looking forward to playing the game more down the road.
Yes.
So,
and I'm sure we've barely scratched the surface too. Like, again,
I know I have. Yeah.
This is our first real look with the game fully released and everything, and I like what I see. Even coming off of Baldur's Gate 3, which is obviously a very different game, but it is an RPG all the same. This has kind of been a nice anti-Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah. Like, Baldur's Gate 3 is a great fantasy game. This is a pretty good sci-fi game. So they just play very different, but it's fun to get the two different sides of the coin, if you will. All right, here we go.
All right, class, settle down. It's time for book reports. Conniff, why don't you kick us off?
So there are no Starfield books. So I don't have anything to relate to Starfield. I do have something that is from another Star-themed IP, and I'm holding it up to the camera for our YouTube listeners, and it's going to be blurred because that's the way my camera is, but it is... Oh, wait. Yeah, whatever. It's Star Wars The High Republic Light of the Jedi. Now, those Star Wars fans out there are like, Conniff, this is Disney-era Star Wars. What are you doing, you betrayer, you heathen? And what I would say is I've got a shelf full of 50 Legends Star Wars novels. I've read at least half of those, anywhere from the original Timothy Zahn Thrawn trilogy to Coruscant Nights trilogy, which was great, the original Han Solo trilogy with Paradise Snare and the Gambit, whatever they're called. The Star by Star was a massive book from the New Jedi Order with the Yazun Vong. I know my way around Star Wars. Always have. This book, Light of the Jedi, was the introduction to this new era of Star Wars that Disney came up with. Now, again, for those Star Wars fans, and I don't know how deep you are, Shiloh, but like Disney, when they bought over Star Wars, they did away with the old canon. And of course, over the past, when did they buy it? Was it like 2013, 2012, something? Whatever. The past like 40 years prior to that, 50 years, whatever it is, they've, stories had been created, whether video games, comic books, other regular novels, the Star Wars Christmas special, all that stuff like has been there, and this universe has been molded and grown, just like the Forgotten Realms. And when Disney came in, they basically said all of that is non-canon. This is the new canon, so we can, tell our own stories. Now, with that said, the light of the Jedi era is like a few hundred years before the events of Phantom Menace. And while old canon stuff didn't really do much with that era, they did do a bunch of stuff with like the old era of Star Wars, like Darth Bane, Darth Revan. The KOTOR games are pretty prolific for that. So Light of the Jedi, though, is the first book of this new Disney era, the High Republic. And in my opinion, it's a pretty great introduction to this era because it's the era of peace and prosperity in the galaxy. Like, everyone's united. The Jedi are at the height of their power, it being, space wizard monks, whatever. And so I'll read the little book synopsis that you get, like on the inside cover. And then I'll briefly say my thoughts, and then we'll close the episode, and we'll talk to you next time. But before that, long before the First Order, before the Empire, before even the Phantom Menace, Jedi lit the way for the galaxy in the High Republic. It is a golden age for the galaxy. Intrepid hyperspace scouts expand the reach of the Republic to the furthest stars. Worlds flourish under the benevolent leadership of the Senate, and peace reigns, enforced by the wisdom and strength of the renowned order of Force users, known as the Jedi. With the Jedi at the height of their power, the free citizens of the galaxy are confident in their ability to weather any storm. I think this is a typo, but even the brightest light can cast a shadow, and some stores defy any preparation. When a shocking catastrophe in hyperspace tears a ship to pieces, the flurry of shrapnel emerging from the disaster threatens an entire system. No sooner does the call for help go out than the Jedi race to the scene. The scope of the emergence, however, is enough to push even Jedi to their limit. As the sky breaks open and destruction rains down upon the peaceful alliance they helped to build, the Jedi must trust in the Force to see them through a day in which a single mistake could cost billions of lives. Even as the Jedi battle valiantly against calamity, something truly deadly grows beyond the boundary of the Republic. The hyperspace disaster is far more sinister than the Jedi could ever suspect. A threat hides in the darkness, far from the light of the age. Of what? See, I did copy this off of Goodreads, so that's on them. And harbors a secret that could strike fear into even a Jedi's heart. And so the premise of this book, like I just read, is this ship effectively blows up in the middle of hyperspace travel. So what that means is it comes out of hyperspace, but still going at light speed. So let's take a shipping container, right? The size that we see on our Earth. If something like that were to come out of at light speed, hit the Earth, it would cause cataclysmic damage. And so that's what the premise is here. And of course, as you read on, you discover the source of this premise, or the source of this catastrophe, and the new players that are kind of painted as the new antagonists. So the one thing I like is, at least in this book, there isn't a focus, like it's not the age-old battle of Jedi versus Sith, because it's been done a million times. That's what Star Wars has always been about. So this is very different. So it is very enjoyable. It's an easy read. There are a lot of different character pairing, like there's a Jedi Master and Apprentice. There's a few of those. And so there's a lot of stuff happening at the beginning on a lot of different planets or moons or whatever. And it was hard to follow. But once the story actually gets into like where you meet the antagonists and all that, like it really picked up. So I think I rated this on Goodreads 4 out of 5 stars, because I think Goodreads rating scale is something like, if you rate it 5 stars, you loved it. great. 4 stars is you enjoyed it. 3 stars is you liked it. It was okay. 2 stars is kind of meh. And then like 1 star, I know a lot of people use for like they didn't even finish reading it or whatever. So for me, 4 stars is really good. And I did enjoy it. And I do have the second book in this era. And Disney has done the annoying thing of having books and comic books and e-novels and all this stuff that kind of make up this timeline. And I'm like, listen, Mickey Mouse, I just want the books in the order that the story is so I can just buy those and read them. I don't want to go hunting for comic books and e-novellas because I just want my trilogies and my series that I can put on a bookshelf in a neat order. So but yeah, it's a pretty great book. You can find it at Barnes and Noble. You can find it at Amazon or whatever. But again, like there are no Starfield books, so I'm kind of having to maybe find some alternative stuff for sci-fi and space novels. I have a fun one for next episode that I think will be good. But
cool.
Have you read any Star Wars novels at all?
I've read. I don't know if I read all the Timothy Zahn books, but I've read a few of them.
Okay.
And then I've read, one of the authors that I follow, I mentioned for the Heir of His Kale series, Paul S. Kemp has written Star Wars novels as well. So
yes,
I read a couple of his, and I've got a couple on my shelf too that I need to finish. Then once again, more rainy day. Reading
needs to start raining or snowing
I need
something.
to move to Seattle or something.
Yeah, then you'll have all the time.
Yeah, and finish all the stuff I need to get done. But yeah, so I haven't read 50 books or anything. I haven't read nearly as many Star Wars novels as I've read D&D based novels by any stretch of the imagination. But I've read some. So
Nice.
Most of my Star Wars knowledge comes from the games and obviously the movies and TV shows. So
solid.
Little bit of RPG. I owned what's a fairly newish. It's come out past 15 years. Edge of.
Oh, it's the
RPG.
Tabletop. Yeah, Edge of Eternity
Edge
or
of Destiny.
something like that.
Something. Yeah, I've played a little bit of that, and that's a fun.
Edge of the
system.
Empire is the
Yeah,
that's by Fantasy Flight Games or something.
yeah.
That sounds right.
It's fun, different.
Cool.
So,
well, that's my book report, and that's basically it for this episode. Let's cue this up, and next episode we're going to dive more into Starfield. There's a whole lot of the game left, and I'm sure Shiloh and I are barely anywhere, so...
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for giving us an hour and some change of your day, and we'll talk to you in the next episode. Peace.
Yep. Everyone, have a good night or day. Questing the Multiverse is brought to you in part by Conniff Productions, House Wood Designs, and Joel Crawford. To follow along with our adventures, please follow us on Twitter at QTM Podcast and consider joining our Discord, the link of which can be found in the show notes or in our Twitter bio. Want your questions or comments read on the show? Email us at questingthemultiverse@gmail.com. Finally, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider giving us a review or a follow wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you for listening.